There comes a time in every person's life where silence is no longer a luxury but a necessity. The world, in its ever-accelerating pace, screams for your attention from every angle. Notifications call your name, opinions fill your screen, expectations press down upon your chest. The external noise is not just sound. It is a weight, a pull, a distraction that causes you to forget who you truly are beneath the noise. And yet, amidst this chaos, there is a voice that does not yell. It whispers. It does not force. It invites. That voice is the divine. And when it says, "Do not go outside on June 30, it does not speak in fear. It speaks in wisdom. Because there are days when the external world vibrates with disharmony. There are alignments that occur not only in the cosmos, but in the energy of humanity. A kind of collective turbulence. The sensitive ones can feel it before it arrives. The trees become still. The wind feels strange. The animals grow restless. And inside the soul, a gentle pressure builds, nudging you not outward, but inward. You see, silence is not about the absence of sound. It is about the presence of self. Silence is not an empty room. It is a full experience. And most people, they run from it. They cannot sit still for even a few minutes without reaching for a distraction. Because in silence, all that is unresolved within you begins to speak. The wounds you buried, the thoughts you ignored, the emotions you numbed, in silence they rise. And that is why people fear it. But the monks, the masters, the truly awakened, they seek it. Because they know that true transformation does not come in noise. It comes in stillness. Not in movement, but in meditation. Not in reaction, but in reflection. When God says, "Don't go outside," it is not to imprison you. It is to free you from what you cannot yet see. The real danger is not always a physical threat. It is energetic. It is spiritual. It is the loss of your center in a chaotic world. On June 30, something may stir in the atmosphere that is invisible to the eye but felt by the soul. A wave of collective fear, a burst of aggressive energy, a test of your alignment. The temptation will be to step outside, to act, to respond, to chase, to engage. But that is exactly why silence is the shield. When you are still, you do not add to the noise. When you are silent, you do not feed the chaos. When you are present, you become untouchable by the lower vibrations. Consider the bamboo in a storm. It does not resist. It bends, it bows, and it survives. Not by fighting the wind, but by aligning with its rhythm. That is the power of surrender. And surrender is found in silence. When the world is loud, be like the mountain, not because it is hard, but because it is unmoved. Be like the moon, not because it shines, but because it reflects without reacting. Be like the monk, not because he is perfect, but because he is intentional. He chooses silence because he knows that energy is precious. Every thought, every word, every action, it either brings you closer to clarity or further into confusion. And on certain days like June 30, the price of misalignment is high. You must begin to see silence as your sacred weapon, not as a retreat, but as a return to center, to breath, to the observer within. In the Shaolin tradition, silence is not passive. It is active stillness. A warrior sitting in meditation is not doing nothing. He is preparing. He is refining his focus, sharpening his awareness, calming his breath, so that when the time comes to act, he does so not from impulse, but from inner command. That is what the world lacks today, inner command. Most people are slaves to the noise around them. Their thoughts are not theirs. Their reactions are conditioned. Their goals are borrowed. Their stress is inherited. And all of this happens because they do not know how to be still. You must reclaim your power by reclaiming your attention. And attention, my friend, is mastered through silence. On June 30, let the world spin without you. Let others chase the wind. Let them argue, hustle, worry, fight, scroll, and strive. You do not need to follow. You are being called to rise above, not through superiority, but through sovereignty. To be sovereign is to be unmoved by what moves others. It is to feel but not be carried away, to see but not be swayed, to observe but not absorb. That is the fruit of silence. And silence is most powerful when the world is most loud. Many people wait for peace to find them, but peace is not something that arrives. It is something you cultivate. Just as a garden must be tended, so too must the inner space of your mind. And that garden grows in silence. Every moment you sit in stillness, you water that garden. Every time you resist the urge to react, you fertilize the soil. Every time you breathe and watch your thoughts without judgment, you pull out the weeds of ego, fear, and false identity. Oh, this is the real work, and it cannot be done when you are constantly outside your house, outside your body, outside your mind, chasing the next thing, the next distraction, the next noise. The greatest transformation comes not in movement, but in stillness. You do not find yourself by traveling the world. You find yourself by sitting still long enough to hear the whispers of your soul. And sometimes, life gives you a day that demands stillness. A day that insists you do not step outside, not because of danger, but because of invitation. A divine appointment with your own awareness. June 30 may be such a day where the veil is thin and the energy is dense. A day when being outside might dilute your spirit. A day when being inside may deepen your light. If you truly understood how sacred silence is, you would treat it like treasure. You would protect it the way a monk protects his morning meditation. You would schedule it the way people schedule meetings. You would defend it the way warriors defend their sacred grounds. Because in silence, you reconnect to your source. You unplug from the illusion and plug into the truth. You leave behind the mind and return to presence. And in presence, there is no fear. In presence, there is no confusion. In presence, there is only now. And now is always enough. Let June 30 be a reminder, not a restriction. Let it remind you that stillness is strength, that silence is wisdom, that protection sometimes looks like disconnection, that not every storm needs to be walked through, some must be waded out, that not every lesson is learned through action, some are received in stillness, that not every day is meant for movement, some are consecrated for meditation. Your task is not to question the instruction, but to honor it, not to resist the silence, but to embrace it, not to explain why the world is loud, but to refuse to let it enter your inner space. Because in that space your destiny is being formed. In that space your healing is taking place. In that space your guidance is unfolding. And none of it requires noise. None of it requires motion. All of it requires presence. All of it requires stillness. All of it requires you to understand silence is not the absence of life, it is the essence of it. And so, when God says, don't go outside, don't ask why, instead, bow your head and go inward. Sit with your breath, close your eyes, withdraw your senses, and there, in the sanctuary of silence, you will hear the only voice that matters. You will feel the only peace that lasts. You will find the only direction that cannot be shaken by the world. And you will understand, some days the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Not in laziness, but in sacred stillness. Not in fear, but in wisdom. Not because you are hiding, but because you are listening. That is the way of the warrior monk. That is the path of the awakened. That is the instruction of the divine. Listen to it, honor it, and protect your energy like it is sacred, because it is. There is a rhythm to life, one that most people have forgotten. A rhythm not found in clocks or calendars, but in energy, in frequency, in alignment. The earth has its breath, its tides, its shifts. The universe has its timing, its alignments, its sacred intervals. And the spirit too has its moments. Moments where stillness is more powerful than movement. Moments where being, not doing, holds the deeper truth. Yet in a world that glorifies speed, we are taught to override that rhythm. We are conditioned to chase, to act, to strive, to keep moving at all costs, even when our soul begs for stillness. But the masters know, true strength lies in recognizing when movement is no longer alignment, but resistance, when action becomes noise, when energy, instead of flowing outward, is asking to turn inward. That is why, when God says, "Don't go outside on June 30, it is not a punishment, it is preservation. It is preservation. It is the divine recognizing something that your conscious mind may not yet see. The energy of the day is not calling for action, it is calling for awareness. The energy of a day is invisible, but it is not silent. It speaks through feeling. You wake up and something feels off. You look outside and the air carries a weight. You notice your thoughts begin to swirl more easily. Your emotions rise without invitation. You may not have language for it, but your spirit knows. It senses that the energy today is dense, volatile, reactive, and if you move with that energy, it absorbs you. It affects your thinking, it distorts your clarity. It leads you down paths not meant for you. This is why sensitivity is power. The ability to feel, not just think. The ability to notice shifts in the unseen. Because those who are in tune do not just live by plans, they live by energy. They do not just follow calendars, they follow spirit. Most people ask, what should I do today? The wise ask, what is the energy today calling for? And sometimes the answer is simple. Do not go outside, not because the world is dangerous, but because the alignment is internal. Because the sacred temple today is not a destination out there, but a sanctuary within. Because the world's current vibration could scatter what the soul is trying to gather. And gathering requires stillness, it requires retreat, it requires space. Nature teaches this in every season. The tree does not bloom all year long. It drops its leaves, not in defeat but in wisdom. The bear does not hunt all year long. It hibernates, not in laziness but in preservation. The earth itself pauses. The moon goes dark. The ocean recedes. Why then do we think we must be in constant movement? Why do we fear rest, silence, retreat? Why do we resist the call to stop? It is because we are addicted to motion, addicted to productivity, addicted to doing, even when the doing disconnects us from ourselves. We have been taught that stopping is failure, that stillness is laziness, that inaction means defeat. But this is a misunderstanding of power. True power does not always rush. Sometimes it waits. True power does not always push. Sometimes it pulls inward. True power is not about how much you do, but how aligned your actions are with the energy of the moment. On certain days, the energy outside is too erratic, too unstable. It is as if the world is out of tune, and every step you take adds to the dissonance. You try to make progress, but doors close. You try to speak, but you're misunderstood. You try to act, but it leads to frustration. That is not failure, that is feedback. That is the universe saying, not today. That is life whispering, retreat, regroup, realign. And those who hear that whisper and obey, they do not fall behind. They move forward more swiftly when the path clears again. So on June 30, if the message is to stay within, trust that instruction. Trust that the energy of that day is not compatible with movement. Trust that something is being preserved in your stillness, that something is being rebalanced in your pause, that sometimes the protection you seek is not found in doing more, but in doing nothing at all. When a storm rages outside, the wise do not go out to prove their strength. They shelter, not out of fear, but out of intelligence. They understand that not all forces must be faced. Some must be respected from a distance. The same is true with energy. When the energetic atmosphere is unstable, It is not a time for confrontation. It is a time for conservation. To protect your thoughts, to guard your emotion, to observe but not absorb. You must begin to treat your energy like it is sacred. Because it is. Every action you take is an exchange of that energy. Every conversation, every interaction, every task. And on days like June 30, that energy must be preserved, not spent, not scattered, not compromised. Because what you may not realize is that